In one of the small towns in Australia, two people go missing. Diana Wilson, a paranormal investigator, and Osmond Shaw, an actor. The man was known as an intelligent, determined guy who worked hard to become an actor. Diana, on the other hand, was considered just a crazy woman, often blamed for the disappearance of several people. Some speculated that Ozzy used his association with Diana to gain fame, as her YouTube channel had a massive following. The couple's disappearance was reported to the police by their camerawoman, Regina Clark, who also provided a recording of the events. Their first joint shoot took place near Windsor, in a miner's shack where ghosts had reportedly become active following a recent flood. Rain had poured for weeks in the area, causing the ground to collapse and resulting in the deaths of 15 locals. Diana believed there was a strong connection between water and spirits, since water is a conductor of energy. According to the locals, the eyes of a man in a photograph inside the shack moved, and Diana wanted to verify it. Using a special detector, Diana searched for fluctuations in the electromagnetic field. If such energy existed, the needle would spike dramatically. However, she had yet to observe anything supernatural. Among her tools was also a spirit box, which allowed communication with the beyond through white noise. Occasionally, one could hear voices or even full phrases. Ozzy didn't believe in it, but unexpectedly, a voice from the spirit box warned them of a flood, and at the same time, the kitchen faucet turned on. Ozzy suspected Regina, but the girl was filming the entire time. Ozzy thought Diana could have staged it all, pre-recording the voices and playing them back on a recorder. While he was unsettled, he reasoned that there was a logical explanation for everything. 7 months prior to filming this show, the aspiring actor had approached Diana after receiving photos in the mail that showed them both lying in water with their eyes closed. The photo was left in his mailbox with no stamp or postmark, suggesting someone had delivered it personally. Diana believed they needed to find this place. Meanwhile, the news reported on a local boy in Sydney who climbed into a sinkhole formed after a storm and discovered a statuette of a creature that was half horse, half fish. Analysis revealed it was made of an unknown material, and its creation date remained undetermined. Diana and Ozzy visited the boy's family, where his mother complained about the artifact, claiming it was cursed. As soon as her son brought it home, everything went wrong. Their cats became terrified, and people felt an overwhelming sense of negativity. The statuette even moved around the house on its own. They placed it in an empty room, but every morning it reappeared in the living room with video footage as proof. The family couldn't get rid of the item because it always returned. Diana took the statuette and monitored it for 12 hours, but observed no paranormal activity. Soon, the team traveled to Lake Chav, where a woman had recently gone missing. Jenny Willis had entered the water in front of her son and never emerged. Ozzy admitted that he had also grown up without a mother. Diana then shared that when she was 10, her family had visited Lake Chav. Her mother had entered the water and disappeared. Rescuers searched the lake for days, but found no trace of the woman. Eventually, the lake dried up, but not even bones were found. Now, for the first time in years, it was filled with water again. What if this was the lake from the mysterious photograph? At the lake, they found a diver who had already searched the waters, but found no traces of the missing woman or anything supernatural. That evening, Ozzy invited Diana to dinner, hoping to get to know her better. Diana confessed that in her dreams, she was visited by a strange creature, half horse, half man. She didn't know what it meant or how to interpret it, so she changed the subject. The next day, Ozzy visited a woman named Gina who claimed that people frequently disappeared at Lake Chav but didn't drown. She herself had witnessed an elderly couple vanish during a walk. Around 30 people witnessed the elderly couple walking halfway across the dry lake before simply vanishing into thin air. They disappeared without a trace. It was a hot day and the elderly couple had decided to cross the dry lake bed. Gina recalled seeing them walk into a strange mist that enveloped the area. It looked unusual, and she even managed to photograph the couple, but when she looked ahead again, they were gone, and no one ever saw them again. The night before, there had been rain, and tracks were visible in the mud, but the tracks abruptly ended at a certain point. Later, Ozzy received a message that Jenny's body had been found in a lake in Tasmania. However, traveling from Lake Chav to Tasmania would take 10-12 hours by car, followed by a ferry ride. Transporting a body that far, that quickly, and without being noticed seemed impossible. The team flew to Tasmania to visit the lake where Jenny's body had been discovered. However, it was definitely not the lake from the photograph. Following this, Diana visited the hospital and learned that the deceased woman had been in the water for at least 2 days. Diana speculated that Lake Chav might contain a portal. Ozzy, on the other hand, believed that Jenny's boyfriend, who had reported her disappearance, had traveled there, killed her, and fabricated the story to cover his tracks. Still, Diana was convinced that Jenny had ended up in another dimension. People don't just vanish into thin air. The next day, Diana and Ozzy began investigating a new case. Klaus Nielsen had been relaxing near a waterfall when he heard a girl screaming. Turning around, he saw a man with wild eyes attacking someone with a knife. Newspaper reports later revealed that the man had come to the waterfalls with his beloved girlfriend, with whom he had been very happy. Klaus recalled hearing the man repeat only one word: horror. After the murder, the man jumped into the waterfall and was later found dead. Diana and Ozzy visited the crime scene and found an inscription on a rock. Ophir, the name of an old mining town near the abandoned Hargraves gold mine, deserted since the mid-19th century. The town's residents had disappeared along with the mine owner, and no traces of the miners or their families had ever been found. Meanwhile, Diana and Ozzy also investigated the case of a family who had lived through a real nightmare. While vacationing by a lake, their daughter suddenly started screaming. It seemed as though something was pulling her underwater. Although the water at that spot was shallow, the girl disappeared. Others helped the father search for the child, but she was gone. Later, the family was informed that the girl, Clara, was in a hospital. How she got there remained a mystery. Clara herself refused to speak. Diana requested permission to speak with the girl, who was intently drawing something and wouldn't look up at the visitors. Diana shared that something similar had happened to her mother. Only then did Clara suddenly confess that she wasn't supposed to come back. She described seeing strange, wavy shapes twisting in the air, creating an overwhelming sense of evil. However, she hadn't seen any people or other beings. Clara grew agitated, and her parents asked Diana and Ozzy to leave her alone. On the way home, Ozzy revealed that Klaus had called him while Diana was speaking to Clara. Klaus sounded terrified, claiming to see strange things. Interestingly, Clara's parents had already signed a contract with a TV show, making it questionable whether the girl's story could be trusted. However, Diana believed Clara was in danger. The team headed to Klaus's house. Strangely, there were no lights on, even though Ozzy had spoken to him just 15 minutes earlier. Klaus responded to their knocking but refused to open the door. Ozzy broke the lock and they entered the house. The space was filled with strange crafts made of wooden twigs, and the walls were covered with drawings of the same designs. Klaus refused to speak to them or move deeper into the house. Ozzy and Diana forced open the bathroom door, which was locked from the inside. However, Klaus wasn't there, even though the water was running and Ozzy had seen him enter the bathroom. Could Diana be right? Do other dimensions truly exist? Later, the pair recorded a special episode of their show, discussing what appeared to be an unrelated chain of events. But first, Diana shared her childhood story, which had inspired her to investigate paranormal phenomena in the first place. Filming is interrupted by the sudden arrival of two detectives who accuse Diana of kidnapping Clara. The investigators are unconvinced by Diana's explanation that she obtained photos of the girl because she was conducting her own investigation. Diana is arrested, but due to lack of evidence, she is eventually released. Diana explains to Ozzy that she had been keeping an eye on Clara because she was the only person to survive such an incident. Diana suspected that whoever was responsible might follow Clara, and that's exactly what happened. She assures Ozzy that no one will ever see Clara again. Later, Diana decides to visit Ophir with Regina to meet a local historian. Despite their disagreements, Ozzy joins the women on the trip. They arrive at night to find the doors open, but the place empty, their calls unanswered. Exhausted, they decide to stay overnight. In the middle of the night, a man eerily resembling Ozzy bursts in after Diana answers a knock at the door. Nervously, he asks for water, saying, "Something is here, I can feel it," before running off into the night without explanation. Diana theorizes Ozzy might have unknown relatives in the area. The next morning, the group explores Ophir. The region, dry for 10 years, now sees rain. They meet Nola, a photographer who reveals unsettling details. Her developed photos show things that weren't there, and she once photographed Ozzy and Diana. Nola recognizes Ozzy from an advertisement and notes his striking resemblance to Edward Hargraves, the local mine owner whose family vanished along with him. Ozzy remains unsure of a connection. Nola admits she doesn't know why she left the photo in Ozzy's mailbox, describing it as an almost trance-like act, despite her desire to forget about the photos. The story of the missing miners has become generational folklore. Nola explains her grandfather heard it from his own grandfather. Some say the miners clashed with local Aboriginal tribes, but this theory is mostly dismissed. The tribes claim the miners brought a water curse and that the townsfolk now live in the lake. The group explores the abandoned town, growing convinced the mystery ties to water or another dimension. Diana suggests Ozzy could be Hargraves' descendant, explaining his pull to the area. She proposes researching his family tree, suspecting time might flow differently in the mines. They reach the flooded mine, only able to explore its upper corridor. Suddenly, they hear voices from the depths, and Regina panics, insisting they leave. Something unseen chases them as they flee in terror. Later, Ozzy reflects on the strange events and sympathizes with Diana, who lost her mother, though he can't explain why they appeared together in the photo. The next day at a lake called Ophir's Seed, Diana sets up a camera. Ozzy warns the photo might have been a warning and suggests they leave the area. The group hears a child's laughter and, thinking it might be Clara, follows the sound to an old well. Diana lowers a camera and finds bones at the bottom. Later, Nola shows footage of miners throwing children into the well, speculating it was a sacrifice but unsure to whom. She warns that calling it a demon is too simplistic and believes the recording was meant for future generations. Urging them to leave Ophir, she admits she doesn't know what they've awakened, but hopes it will go dormant again. Diana later shows Ozzy footage from her home of a strange, horse-like figure in her room. Ozzy, shaken and uncertain, resolves to uncover the truth. That night, Diana dreams of her mother entering Ophir's lake, whispering her name, but her voice turns inhuman. Diana wakes, convinced her mother is in hell. The next morning, they review their recordings but find nothing unusual. That night, while watching the lake, Diana confesses she believes in the curse. There's always a grain of truth in such tales. Suddenly, screams echo from the lake. Among them, Diana recognizes her mother's voice and runs toward the water. Ozzy stops her just in time. On September 5th, 2020, Diana and Ozzy, hand in hand, walked into the lake and disappeared. Camerawoman Regina Clark filmed the event and insists they didn't drown. No bodies were found. The incident spurred rumors. Some claimed Diana couldn't cope with her mother's loss. Others accused her of throwing children into the well. Ozzy's family blamed Diana for his disappearance. Despite evidence, he entered the lake willingly. 4 months later, Regina returned and found Diana's camera. The footage showed them in a cavern-like place, wandering aimlessly. Ozzy saw distant lights and heard drums, but lost Diana. He found her glasses, unaware of her whereabouts. In the final moments, a laughing Diana declares to her mother, "I've come for you." The film, shot documentary style, suffers narrative inconsistencies, with at least one plotline lost in the events. It lacks strong horror elements, falling short of the genre's standards.